I love that song, How Great Is Your Love, because it just talks about God's awesome love for us. And what I wanted to just kind of talk about today was God's love and biblical love, and how we need to love each other. And we can't do that unless we experience God's love first and we understand how much He loves us. I know the topic of racial injustice resulting in all of the protests that are going on these days is just in the news all the time. And I'm certainly not one to be political and get involved in all of the protesting and arguing on social media. In fact, I rarely get on social media or other platforms like that, and when I do and start to read some of the comments, it just annoys me, so I get off very quickly. Even the news these days, you know, it's a lot to take in. Just the world seems to be just going crazy. And as a follower of Christ, though, I realize for me and for all of us that we are called to do what Jesus would do in these situations, and that's to be His hands and feet. And I believe one word encompasses what that means, and that word is love. And that's what I think about during these times. John 13:35 says, "By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." I think of that old song, "They will know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love." You know, I was listening to that song or thinking about it, and I thought, why is such a song with such a great topic in a minor key and sung so slowly? I don't know about that, but anyway, that's just one of the songs that came to my mind. There's no greater evidence that we are followers of Christ than if we are walking in love and showing love to others. I ran across this definition of biblical love on Bible.org, and I liked it. It said, biblical love is a self-sacrificing, caring commitment which, in obedience to Jesus, shows itself in seeking the highest good of another person. We all encounter people every day who are different than we are in one way or another. We may not understand what they go through or the best way to communicate with them, but you know, I believe that love is the universal language. And that made me think about my daughter, who was about 10 at the time. We took a mission trip to Africa about 6 years ago. And she and her brother were going to help with the vacation Bible school for the kids there. And, you know, they speak Setswana, a different language. And, of course, they look different, they act different. We were in villages where they live in huts. It was so completely different than anything my daughter has experienced in her lifetime. She was understandably nervous about going there and speaking to these kids about Jesus and, you know, just sharing with them. And she says, what do I do? What do I say? And I said, you know what? We're going to make this simple. I said, all you need to do is love them. Treat them the way you want to be treated. I said, play with them, smile at them, serve them, you know, by taking care of their little brothers and sisters. They would bring like toddlers there that the older kids were supposed to watch, so they had to just sit there, and so we would pick them up and let the other kids play. And I said, just love them, and that will communicate more than anything else. 1 Corinthians 13 defines love as patient, kind, not envious, not boastful, not proud, not dishonoring, not self-seeking, not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs, does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and it's never failing. Before I talk about the specific ways to love others, I want to mention that true love that comes from God, which is agape, is shown in action. It's a commitment and a choice. You know, we've heard that before. It's not a feeling. It's not based on my feelings, because those feelings change. It's clearly an action and a commitment. I know we can all relate to at times of choosing to show love to family or friends or spouses when we really didn't feel like it. It's one of those, you know, I love you, but I really don't like you right now. I'm sure you all have experienced that, as I have, and it's true, and that love is shown in action. I've seen a bumper sticker before that I really like, and it just simply says, love does. Jesus said in John 13:34, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another." We are supposed to love like Jesus. So based on the previous definition of love that I read, let's look at some specific ways we see love in action in the Bible. John 3:16 talks about God loving the world so much that he gave, that action he gave. His greatest love was the selfless action of sacrifice. John 13:14 says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." So that's serving. And ways that we can do that, I think, is in our time, money, and attention. 3 things. Time is maybe making meals for somebody that is sick or is in need of a meal. Maybe they're in the hospital or something. Babysitting, pet sitting, yielding to others in traffic or letting others go in front of you in line in the grocery store. And I know that's a really hard thing. It is for me. I tend to be just going after whatever's on my list, and I get in and out of the grocery store, and I don't want to mess around. And I have to remind myself to think of others and not myself. And so times I will glance behind me, and if I see somebody that only has 1 or 2 things, I'll say, "Why don't you go in front of me?" So it's an on-purpose thing of just sacrificing and serving others. In money, giving to those who are in need. In mission trips, paying for the person behind you in the drive-through line or at the cash register. Paying attention to those around you, offering a wave or a smile or a compliment just because, and having an understanding about the struggles that you see that they're in. This shows you are open and not closed off, and it invites others to be open as well and may give that opportunity to introduce Jesus to them. The second part of the definition was caring commitment. If we see a need, we need to meet it to the end with understanding and compassion. We all know the parable of the Good Samaritan, where he saw the person in need and he took care of him, took him to an inn, gave money and said, "If you need more, I will give you more." I mean, he followed that need through to completion, and that is caring commitment. And so I think for us, maybe it's just if we see somebody that's in need around us, that we follow up maybe with an email or a phone call or a letter or something, and make sure that they're okay, and make sure that see if there's anything else we can do for them. Love also listens. James 1:19 says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. When we're trying to make a point, we're not doing a very good job of listening. One of my neighbors who I've seen post on Facebook before during all this racial injustice, and she is an African-American woman. She posted simply on a black screen in front of it in white, it just said, "Shh, show me." And I read that and I thought, that is exactly what I'm trying to get at here, and what I believe we as Christians should get at is enough talking and arguing and trying to show evidence and make a point to say why one side is right or another side is wrong or whatever. Enough of that. Show me. Show love to me in practical ways. In this world of social media where it's easy to add our own 2 cents and we think we can say whatever we want, we need to be careful about that. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." This pertains to unwholesome words coming through our fingertips as well as we type responses on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media platform we have. Just because we think it doesn't mean we need to say it. And if we're thinking it, we certainly need to pray that God would guard our minds and train our minds according to his word in light of all that's going on. As believers, I heard this pastor say this before, it's not our job to make a point, it's our job to make a difference. Just think about that. We're not supposed to fight and argue and debate to make a point and to be right. We should be making a difference. We should be leaving the room, leaving the area with the fragrance of Jesus following us. Just like somebody who had, you know somebody that wears a certain perfume, and every time you smell it, you think of that person. You know what they are like because of that. And we should be that way as Christians, that we should give off that scent of Jesus wherever we go. 1 Corinthians 8:1 says, knowledge puffs up while love builds up. Only love can impact a life deeply enough to create lasting change. When we love someone, we communicate how much we value that person, which opens the door to meet their deepest needs. Another way we can love others is by praying. And that maybe at this time needs to be the most important thing that we do. Pray for God to have his way in the world during these troubling times. Pray for ourselves to see others the way Jesus sees them. Just pray for our leadership and just all of that. Seeking the highest good of the one loved is the last part of the definition. And that is wanting them to become more like Christ. That's the highest good anybody could ever hope for. Obviously, if someone's walking in sin, we're not loving them by encouraging them to continue in that sin. But, shoving the Bible down someone's throat may not be the best course of action either. In times like these, I think we have to earn the right to be heard by serving, listening, and praying first. Then relying on the Holy Spirit to show us when to speak the truth in love. I want to close with one last thing, and I thought of this. I had this hanging on my wall when I lived in Nashville. There were several musical instruments behind it. It's the prayer of St. Francis. And it says this: Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we are born to eternal life.